Welcome to From the Ashes, the Dungeon Crawler Network podcast all about Ashes of Creation by Intrepid Studios. Bear witness to the rebirth of the MMORPG genre from the ashes of an industry that has left the gamers behind. I am Aggelos, founder of the Dungeon Crawler Network, and we are coming to you live from the Mighty Beard Tavern. And with me, my co-host, the one, the only, Stormzlord himself. How are you, sir?
Doing great. Great day today. How about yourself?
I'm doing pretty awesome. It was like 95 degrees today, bright and sunny, so I had all my windows open in my car. I went up to my office, and then all of a sudden I heard the pat of rain hitting the metal roof, and I walked out, and it was what looked like hurricane rain. So, yeah, it was pretty crazy, actually, to see, and not at all what I expected. So my drive home resulted in a wet rear end.
There you go.
Yeah, I was moist. Very, very moist. Anyway, no, Alpha Soul, how are you, buddy?
I'm doing good. I'm doing really good. Excited to talk about the plethora of news that was shoved down our throats in the past week and a half.
That was an elegant way of putting it. Yes, we have a lot of stuff to talk about this week. A lot of it's going to be the recap from the recent convention circuit that the Intrepid Studios went with a little bit of a wrap-up from Cologne, Germany, and GamesCom. Followed up by some of the information that we learned from the PAX West 2018 panel. So it should be a fun show indeed. But before we jump into our talking points for this week, we got to give a shout out to Happy Hansel. Happy. Yeah, how you doing, Happy? Who upped his pledge this month on our Patreon over at patreon.com/dungeoncrawlernetwork. He brought multiple torches, lit them all, and then walked out and said, good luck, everybody else. So, yeah. No, awesome. Thank you so much, Happy, for that. And, of course, the awesome people who support us over at twitch.tv/dungeoncrawlernetwork. We had several new subs, including Samuel Son, Altorai, Ishibu, who's been doing it for 4 months in a row, Bad Lad Jr., who also hit 4 months, and BDog52. Thank you so much, guys. That's much appreciated. It helps keep the lights on here and allows us to continue to do what it is that we do. And again, a little perk to all those who do support us either over at Patreon or on Twitch. If you are part of our Discord, you gain access to all of our shows at least 24 hours early. That's right. You get to listen to our shows before everyone else does. So, yay, fun times. You can also support us by leaving us a 5-star iTunes review. We don't have any new ones this week, but hey, that's how you can support us as well. All right, guys, let's go ahead and just jump right on into this. First off, I got to give a special thanks to I'm going to try to pronounce this, and I apologize if it's wrong, but it's what is that? Goshkin, Goschkin, who was kind enough to post all this information from the Cologne, Germany meeting that they had afterwards, as well as the Autumn Leaf Guild. They posted that on the official forum. So thank you, shout out to them for bringing this information to the community. After the GamesCom debacle, which was the my.com, they did actually have some good talking points that they kind of went over, and I guess we'll just kind of hop down this list, guys, and I guess if there's anything good to know, we'll see it. Alpha Soul, I'm gonna make you do some work. Why don't you jump down this list and hit the bullet points right off the bat? Save my voice.
Actually, I don't have that particular list pulled up. I have a different list from AOC Dungeon.
Oh, okay. Well, it's in our notes, but that's okay. I'll jump through it. First off, I know there was some issues that they had talked about with the idea of, okay, how's my.com? I know we talked about this last week, but this is going to be something quick that we'll mention as well. People were asking whether or not with my.com taking over, the publishing of Ashes of Creation in the EU and CIS regions, whether or not subscription models actually going to be staying And it is indeed going to be staying. So my.com, as we said before, is not going to have any real push when it comes to the financial side. So there was some interesting stuff, though, that I think we had mentioned last episode. All EU players will be required to sign up for my.com, and all EU data is stored at my.com but will be encrypted, that only Intrepid Studios can evaluate the data. The NA account is separate from the EU account, and that's something I wanted to hit on here real quick, because it wasn't specifically mentioned, but it was noted that they stated there would be a sub would be needed for both, and one would not cover all, because we don't know if that's going to be the case. I know Steven has said that any of the Kickstarter rewards you got, such as if you were a Kickstarter and got a Backer of Worlds with a lifetime sub, you would be okay to use that, but it wasn't specifically mentioned whether or not the subs were going to be a sub for both or per data center.
It sounds like it's going to be per data center, only because they've mentioned at this point that you can go ahead and take your account and register on the EU with it. And if that was, or, whichever data center that you're on. So if that's not the case, then I would imagine there's no need to actually specifically choose which center that you're registering on.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, I got the list pulled up now. So.
Okay. Storms, what about you? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, what caught my mind first was the fact that all the EU data stored in my account will be encrypted, and only IS can evaluate the data. Now, does that mean, not that it matters, but does that mean IS employees in Europe or IS employees in America? Because that, to me, would make a difference. But again, it's interesting.
I didn't actually even think about that one way or the other, but yeah, you're right. Like, I don't know I guess they do have Intrepid Studio people in Europe, in France specifically, but I don't think they're actually part of. Move my phone. I'm getting some funky noise off of this. They didn't specifically mention whether or not that team would actually be involved in any of the customer support or, technical side of things. I think they're mostly art assets, if I remember correctly. So I'm not necessarily sure if that's really going to matter. Now, my question is whether or not if let's say someone got the Kickstarter reward for this, full-time subscription or the lifetime sub, if you have to use it on one data center, but say you move to a different data center, do you then have to sub going forward?
I would hope not.
Yeah.
I'd hope to be able to transfer it.
I get the feeling it's no.
Yeah. That's kind of my fear. So I know some people, if they're gonna play on one or the other, we had this issue, not an issue per se, but one of our GMs for the Ashes Guild used to play on the North American side on ESO, but then went over to EU. So, but he played on NA for years before going back over to EU when his job shifted, so that he could actually play at times that actually made sense. Because when he was still in school, he could play during NA times, and it wasn't really a big deal. But after going back to work, he had to switch back. So I'm curious if the lifetime sub is account wide, or whether or not it's actually only going to be on one or the other.
Yeah, that'll be interesting to see. Because that could, throw a couple of monkey wrenches in the exact scenario that you're talking about, where you might want to switch back and forth between data centers for whatever reason.
Right. Not even like I'm playing on both, but more of I was on one, my guild fell apart, and now like in our specific case, our member just got a job that no longer fit with the times that we were really playing, so he switched over to the EU so that he could play with people and they were actually online, not getting on the NA server, not having anyone to play with.
Yeah. And in my cousin's case, he's actually he plays from Jamaica, and so he doesn't know basically which one is going to give him better ping, and it usually takes him a couple, like a month or two to kind of figure out between the two which one's going to consistently give you better, and that causes him to hop between the two.
Right. Well, in this particular case, it looks like he would have to end up paying 2 different subs to test.
Yeah.
Because he'd have to test the NA, which is its own, and then the EU, which is its own. And from what I'm understanding is if you want to get away from my.com altogether, you have to sign up with the Intrepid with the NA side. So it's not even, the accounts aren't even connected per se. If you sign up through the Intrepid Studio site for your account, it is now an NA account and cannot go anywhere else. Is how I'm reading that data. So you'll end up possibly having 2 separate accounts versus ESO, for instance, is when we can play your account is your account and you can go wherever you want, or it carries along. The data center and the characters may be different, but the account's all the same. That's not really the case here.
Yeah.
Now, moving off of that one, they did say they're under considerations for having an EU-themed NA server because, as we had spoken about before, certain events, castle sieges, and I think castle siege is the only known thing at this point. I know some people mention node sieges, but I don't think that's on the same schedule because, remember, castle sieges are a monthly scheduled event that happen.
Yeah.
You have 3 weeks of fighting for the resources around the castle and then 1 of the actual castle siege. So there's a little bit of difference. But they're thinking about making it so that there's an NA server with EU times, so that way EU players who wanted to get away from my.com. This actually,
Interesting.
well, the fact this came from the Cologne Meeting has me curious because this is a direct conflict with what Steven's Q&A was after the my.com saying no, they weren't going to do that. So again, this was coming out of talking points they had. We can't confirm this information, and I made a note of this because I'm like, okay, some of it's kind of interesting and we're talking about it makes sort of sense, but I think there's some real issues because Steven already came out and said no, they weren't considering that. Do you think they kind of took a step back on that one, or?
I think they did. Well, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say I think they did, only because I don't think that he, and Stephen, as in he, anticipated this much of a blowback in terms of how people felt about my.com. And from what we know, he obviously cares about the community and, is heavily invested within the game. So I think he's open to the possibility of doing it, as it says there, but I don't think that they've made up their mind either way just yet until we kind of see what happens, when boots hit the ground, if you will.
Gotcha. Makes sense. This is actually something that's kind of interesting. And some of these talking points we're going to hit very quickly because I kind of went through this entire list and just bullet pointed the important information that came out. Pretty much at launch, they're going to have 3 languages localized for the game: German, English, French, and Russian. And they're estimating about 6 months after that for a Spanish and Italian localization. Another key note here is that there are not going to be any voiceovers outside of NPC greetings. So there's not going to be any fully voice-acted NPCs.
Good.
I agree, actually.
It's expensive, and it costs a lot of money to do it. So
yeah,
and it takes a lot of time.
I wasn't even going from that point of view, but yes, you're right. When you have to get SAG involved, the Screen Actors Guild, because they're involved with any voice actors, in case you were curious. So they got their own union going on. So there's a whole bunch of union stuff you have to get through. It is expensive to get any kind of voice actor for it. But I'll tell you what. We found this within ESO. I love questing in ESO. I can sit there and listen to it. Do you know what happened? People never wanted to be on voice comms then because they were too busy listening to the quest dialogue. You know what
actually, that's exactly what happened. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, I could be in talking with the guild, but then someone's having a conversation over this quest that I want to listen to, right? So people were just not showing up. The people who weren't really paying attention to the quest anyway. They were just like, yeah, whatever, spacebar through it. As much as I do like voiceovers from an MMO perspective and a community growth perspective, I actually learned to hate it whenever I started playing ESO. Loved it at first. It was fantastic. It was great. I still love it when new stuff comes out, but it really reinforces the idea of this is a single-player MMO and that the other people are just more animated NPCs and you don't really want to interact because it will, break you out of your story session. So that's sort of an issue that I have. Storms, what about you? What are your thoughts? Storms?
Well, okay, so I'm thinking, right?
Oh, okay.
So,
All right.
I'm thinking again, right? No problem.
Well, you have your camera broken apart and sitting in a corner somewhere.
That's right. So is he really there? Is he?
Yeah. Well, yeah. Normally I can look at your face and go, okay, he's coming up with something, but now I can't.
There you go. So it's really interesting to me, anyways, to see the choice that they've made to not have the voiceovers beyond that, right? Because it would distract, and if the main purpose of this is PvP first, then it would make sense to make that choice. But I didn't even think it through until I read that one.
Right. It's funny because I know a couple of us have been playing Battle for Azeroth, and jumping into that versus what ESO has, there is a big difference. Now, the one thing that WoW has started to, I guess, embrace is the idea of this visceral storytelling where they start doing it through cutscenes. Now, I was sitting in voice chat with several of our guild members just having a good time talking back and forth while we're questing. But I'll tell you what, everything got muted the second a cutscene showed up because I wanted to hear what was going on. At first, I wasn't muting or anything like that, but then they don't know I'm in a cutscene, and they would start saying something, and I'll be like, shut up. Not that mean, obviously, because these people are awesome. But, in my head, I'm like, I want to listen to this. I'll talk in a minute. They'll ask me a question. I'll be like, hold on, cutscene. And that does break the social part. And so I am definitely glad about that. So this one's going to be fun because we actually had this conversation. Oh, was it in... I think it was in our YouTube comments, actually. We were having a conversation about group size because when we did it, I think it was episode 58, when we were talking about some of the guild information that we sort of gleaned. We were saying about 300 as a guild size, right? And how I thought it was small, and another user was like, that's not a small guild. I think 300 is more than enough. In fact, I don't even think you need that many. And they gave their points and whatnot. But this right here, a full event raid. So this is AKA like a dragon or, something that would happen because a node leveled or de-leveled, right? So not necessarily an instance raid, but an event raid, like a world event, will consist of 9 40-man groups. Is probably what they're going to scale it for, is how I'm reading this. 360 players. So 360 players. Special and rare loot will not drop from event raids, and it will likely only be the first group to damage the boss that will actually get loot. Titles and other cosmetic rewards are still under discussion. Let's talk about this. Is this something that you guys see as an issue?
Yeah, I think it's going to dissuade people from doing the events if they're only the first group to damage that. If there's 9 groups, right? So there's a pretty good chance that you're not going to be the group that gets that drop.
Now, yeah. So I completely and 100% agree. The only way that I see them balancing that particular aspect is making it so that anyone in that node has a lot to lose if somebody doesn't kill that thing.
Sure. Like, and that's how I'm sort of reading into this a little bit, is that you're right. These event things, I think you're going to want to be there just for the fact that it's an event thing that may or may not ever show up again. Remember, unless a node is destroyed and rebuilt up, like you would have, and we don't know if it's just destruction and creation that's, causing these events. It might be more easy to reproduce. But what if it is multiple things, right? Multiple series of events that led up to this particular thing happening, okay? I don't know. We don't know whether or not it's going to be that branching or it's going to be fairly linear. As the game goes on, I'm sure we'll figure it out. But even the idea of a node leveling up, the chances that it's going to be destroyed again, we're under the assumption is probably going to be very small. Because if a node takes 6 months to level, they say it's going to take 6 months worth of preparation in order to siege the node, and if it fails, guess what? That's a significant chunk of time that was invested into that node, and people are going to start getting attached to that node, especially if in-node housing is a thing that that they own there. So when a dragon pops up, there is a fairly good chance that that dragon will never pop up again. And we use dragon only because of Nodes Part 2. Off, where's Nodes Part 3? That, they used a dragon as a reference. See, no one else laughed at the joke. I'm looking.
Yeah, no, you're looking for that laugh to come in.
Yeah, come on now. Alpha got it afterwards, but it was slightly delayed. And
it was delayed.
It was delayed.
You know what, though? I'm still stuck on this. 360 players. That is a large number of players.
It is
supposed to take down some creature. That's clearly not, the majority of it. Could be a band of guilds put together. I don't know. We're planning on, having upwards of X amount. Even then, you have to have every single member online plus 60. I mean, that's a lot of people.
No, I completely agree, because even as our guild numbers are going up and up, and which they definitely are, whether or not we'll hit the 300 cap and have to spread over, yeah, that's true, we might, but we're an international guild, so we have people from all time zones. You may have a high percentage, but you're not going to have 100%. I would be surprised if you do. Well, awesome on you, I guess, but I don't know if that's going to be something that we'll actually see, that you'll actually have 100% of usage. But yeah, I think this will definitely be something that's going to be a multi-guild alliance, or maybe not even something that's guild related. Maybe it's just because you got to remember, citizenship is also part of that. People who are citizens of the node who may not be affiliated with a guild, but you do have a common cause, and that's the protection of that node. They did mention that 40-man raids was going to be pretty much the norm. There wasn't going to be small raids, like what we consider 10, 12, 25-man raids. Any raid event is going to be a 40-man raid. So anything smaller than that isn't going to be considered a raid in this game. So this is 9 different, what we would call raid groups going up against this. I'm very much seeing this similar to Guild Wars 2 world bosses, because it was easy to get, I shouldn't say easy, but it was fairly common to have hundreds of players on that screen. For some of the bigger ones. Tequatl is still one. Few of the others. The Claw of Jormag. Those dragons that when they popped up, now given they popped up on a timer, We're not talking Guild Wars 2, but when they were there were alerts. You knew things were going to happen. People funneled into that zone, and they were ready for when Tequatl popped up, when the Claw of Jormag popped up, because they wanted the loot from it. Speaking of loot, though, considering special and rare loot doesn't really matter, I guess it really depends on the reward structure, too, right?
Mm-hmm.
If it's crafting materials, they may be higher-end crafting materials, but if they're crafting materials, I mean, I'm a crafter. I love crafting materials. I wouldn't be but some people may be. They would only look at it as I could sell that, right?
Yeah, it's going to depend.
Titles and cosmetic rewards, if that's something they do come into, I think that very well might be something completely different. So they said during sieges, and I have dieges in there, apparently I can't type, player collision is confirmed, but city will have multiple entrances, so it would be hard for someone to just block a city entrance, but there would also be other ways that to break a blockade that were not mentioned.
I think that is going to be a dynamic place to look at activity in sieges, or dieges if you want to go that way.
Dieges, yeah, dieges.
Just the changes in Cyrodiil coming up for ESO are just hinting at what can happen if you can have places to put blockades, and then you can have a way to break that blockade. It's going to be just phenomenal amount of planning how to figure that out.
By catapulting dwarves?
Well, I mean, you got to think about it, right? You're going to have meat bags, so you're going to get over the blockade, or you're going to have some type of trebuchet just for the blockade, or a ram or something. You're going to have people planning on how do we get the stuff out of the way to get in, and how do we deal with once we get in. So there's a whole bunch of things we're adding by doing it this way, and I think it's tremendous. I think it's going to be a blast.
All I could think about is the Warhammer, the catapulting, the greenskins, the orcs. Rawr!
Yeah.
They're flying against the walls.
Now, see, I see Monty Python there. We're catapulting the cow, but that's okay. Different thought.
All right. Well, yeah, we're all on similar. All right. Metropolises will enjoy certain advantages that are not normally available. There won't be any fast travel options in the game, but Scientific Metropolis, for example, will be able to build a portal that can be used to portal to certain regions. A trading metropolis will be able to build an auction house, and should another trading metropolis emerge alongside the sphere of influence of this metropolis, the two auction houses will merge with each other. So, and let's see there. The market will probably be the market will probably be the most frequent place in the respective cities. Here you'll be able to rent market stalls and sell your goods for normal ones. They didn't really say anything else about the divine or the military. I guess Jeffrey made an offhand comment about rule with an iron hand, but we don't really know what that actually means. And these are things we kind of knew already.
Yeah. There's a lot of speculation about what that rule with an iron hand actually means. It doesn't really give us much right now.
No. Hello, Kitty. For everyone who likes to see the kitty, it's right here. Goodbye, Kitty. Anyway, they did talk about marketing stalls, that there will be a non-player character that will represent the seller, so you're not going to actually have to be online. That was a question I know we did have a question, are we going to have to leave ourselves online? My wife plays a game called MapleStory. I'm sure some of you guys probably heard about it in the past. Thais, you guys have seen her in some of the earlier episodes. She loves MapleStory, has been playing it for years, but whenever you wanted to sell in that game, there wasn't an NPC. You left your character online. You rented one of these stalls, and your character just sat there. And you were able to have like this marketing interface. So that's something that they did mention. There will be a bulletin board where you can post your inquiries and requests, and taverns will have mini games such as card and board games. See, those things we actually talked about in a very early episode as well, so that's kind of nice. Marriages will definitely be possible, and there will be bonuses that have not yet been set. Again, we did an episode on that. I'm curious what kind of bonuses
Yeah. I would guess that it's probably going to be something along the lines of like previous games. Like if you're married, you get 5% bonus EXP when you group together or something of the sort.
I know we talked about this in an episode long. My wife actually was on that one. Thais, we talked about in-game marriages and what we thought was cool. Some of the Eastern MMOs allow for marriage within these games, and they often had a lot of kind of, I shouldn't say pay to win, but it kind of felt like that. There were actual advantages, like damage bonuses, things like that for being married. I'm not really okay with that. I don't know about the experience. The experience gain is about the only thing I would say is okay, and only if you were with your partner in game.
Yeah, when it's done in like Eastern MMO style, then that everyone's going to get it. If you got a damage bonus, even if it's something small like 5%, I can guarantee you everyone will marry them in the game. Simple as that.
Everyone in my raid team, you all got to marry each other because we need that damage boost. So
there you go.
Kiss and make up. We're doing this. Yeah, I'm not real fond of the idea of marriage. If the bonus is too good, you're gonna feel like you need to do it. Period.
Yeah, that's gonna be mandated. I personally don't like that, but it'll probably happen if that's the way it works.
I'm not real fond of that either. Guild capes in the Kickstarter packages Leader of Men and above will be freely configurable, but there will be controls to combat the trolls. So from what I'm gathering with fully configurable, I'm curious if we're going to be able to... the pink dildo gang. No, that's not...
Yeah. That's exactly what I was thinking of. They're around everywhere. The flying penises and stuff like that.
We'd be classier than that. We would just be, the pink tower, and it would just be an innocuous image that you kind of looked at and went, oh.
What?
Did I just see what I thought I saw? Nah.
Did that really? Yeah.
No. Nope. I'm curious if it's going to be something like what ESO does, where they give you pre-configured options that you just go, I want this, or this, or if we're going to have something more. The crafting system will be very extensive. Any profession can be practiced in parallel. For example, mining and blacksmithing. However, if you spread out over several professions, you will not be able to drive them to perfection. If you want to forge a two-handed sword, like a Mastercraft two-handed sword, you will have to put all your points in the art of forging a two-handed sword. So here's something that, this was kind of new information. And the reason why I said it was new information is because, we had 3 different lines once upon a time. You'd have your gathering, your processing, and your crafting, your artisan classes. From the idea of this, I almost in my head am picturing Ultima Online. You're going to have to help me here, where you have a set amount of points that you can ever get. In UO, you had 700. That was, and that's what
it's 700.
It was did they ever increase it? I can't remember.
That's my knowledge, but I don't know.
700 points is what you could do for your character. That's all the knowledge your character could learn. And you could put them towards various skills. I'm starting to think that the crafting is not going to be so much that you're locked into one path. If you want to be a jack of all trades, you can be a crafting, processing, and artisan. But if, let's say, you only get 600 points, total, you can only put 200 in each, whereas if you went 600 in one, you can go all the way up. So you can see at 200 points, I could do a little bit of everything, but I can't do anything super well.
Yeah, that's exactly what it sounds like based off of that. It's I used the same analogy when I was explaining this to somebody else. It's just like UO, except the skill caps are higher for each of them. So you could theoretically dump every single point into one, straight line, basically. And
sure,
as you said, master at forging a two-handed sword.
Right. But by doing that, you would then have to buy all your ingots because you don't know how to do. So, yeah.
Right. Yeah, it's going to be a balance.
And that's actually different from what I thought it was.
No, I think it's a good setup.
No, I
At
agree.
least that we know so far, yeah.
Yeah, I like it too.
Yeah, I definitely like that. That way you can kind of figure out how you go, what you need. But I know when this was first kind of announced, when I first thought about it, it wasn't so much, you picked one. Even on our guild form for when people sign up, we're like, what are you going to be? Processing, gather, or crafting. That may change, obviously. And at this point, no one really knows. You're just trying to figure out exactly kind of what people's focuses are. So when we get closer to the game, we'll have to hear that, Storms. We have to refine that form once we know more about the game. But anyway.
I figured we could do some of that.
Yeah, whatever. Just guys, you're getting a little bit of a guild meeting just as we go along. No, I'm just kidding. Make a note of that. No, for us, it was something that we just want to figure out, well, what is something that you're interested in doing? That way, when we know going forward in the guild what it is that we need, we can kind of look, okay, we have people who are more interested in gathering than crafting or whatever, vice versa. We can kind of figure out what we're missing. So that's kind of neat. So materials used will have an influence on crafting. There will be different material classes from normal to super epic rare. That's the quote they have.
Super epic rare.
Super epic rare. If it's named anything other than super epic rare, I'm claiming bait and switch and false advertising. Yeah. Super epic rare.
Yeah. Super epic rare plus.
Yeah.
Within the go ahead.
I was gonna say that really excites me as well with the previous one too, because if you think about the analogy with the Master Two-Handed Sword, and you switch it over to something like mining or something like gathering, you could theoretically become a miner that brings in a much higher yield, much higher quality items if you just focus on mining or whatever the heck the gathering skills are.
Right. This is actually something that was really fascinating. Within those quality levels of, normal to super epic rare, there's actually going to be levels within that. So there will be good and less good items. Alpha Soul, did you play Final Fantasy 14?
Yes, I did.
You remember the high quality?
Yes, I do.
That's what I'm thinking. Like, in that game, you could farm materials. And there were normal whatever, but there was a chance that while you were farming, you would get a high-quality material. The high-quality material actually gave you more crafting points when you were doing the crafting minigame. So by loading up with high-quality items, you would have a higher chance of producing a better quality item. Better quality items obviously had better stats. That fascinates me right there, the fact that you could mass-produce, steel greatswords, but if you had a high-quality steel, the damage coefficient would be different.
Yeah.
Or that would be rated based on the material. Like, you could make a sword, yeah, but if it's pitted with, pit iron, there's inclusions all through the metal. Like, it has the shape of a sword, but its damage is less because it just will not hold an edge. I guess I didn't heat treat it good enough, But that's fascinating to me. So the values of armor, for example, cannot be adjusted after the forging process. So there's not going to be any type of reforge, but it looks like you're going to be able to actually manipulate what you want armor to be during the crafting process. If you don't like it, the armor has to be destroyed and reforged. Of course, you get some of the materials back when you destroy it, but not everything. That's not too different. That's sort of like what we see in ESO. You craft an item. Well, I should roll that back a little bit. ESO is a little different because there aren't really stats on armor. There's set bonuses on armor. The set bonuses are set in stone. The enchantment really mattered on what the stats actually were. But in this particular case, you'd be able to manipulate the stats only during the crafting process. Once it's finalized, you're done, and you have to break it apart or not. No? All right. As we mentioned earlier, with a miner, it'll be possible to find higher quality materials of ore the more you specialize in it.
So you got to bring your kids out to mine.
Yeah. My son's going to get a character made. He's going to be a miner. Just run around this circle. It's mine for me all day, and Daddy will give you some candy or something. I don't know. We'll discuss the terms of that contract when we get there, but probably a contract that he can't let his mom see either, you know. Where'd you get all that candy? Oh, Daddy. No, shh. No.
Shh, quiet. Nope.
You don't want this to end, do you? The best items in game are generally made by craftsmen, but there will also be a few very good items from boss opponents.
I like that.
Yeah, same here.
I like that. I'll give credit to the ability of the craftsmen to have them be able to craft the best.
Gotcha. I'm fond of that, especially when it comes to the type of economy that we're hoping the game actually has, which is more of a crafting base. I was when we did our rating episodes, we did rating episodes way back, episodes like 25 and 26, I think it was. We talked about rating very, very early on what we knew in some theory crafting. I'm actually in the camp where I really don't want to see any kind of weapon drops or armor drops. Like if you kill a dragon, why should it have a greatsword or a piece of armor? And if it does, you pulled it out of its stomach, so it's got, teeth marks in it, slightly rotting from stomach acid, those kind of things. Maybe you could reforge it if it was something special, but in reality, crafting materials from those bosses, I think, would be more something that would stimulate the economy, because then even raiders who then find these materials going, all right, I've got a glowing orb of might. Great. I can take that to a crafter and infuse it into armor and now have essentially raid quality gear without it, negating the economy in general.
What about schematics?
What about schematics?
Does that fit in as something you could see dropping from a raid boss?
Depends on what the raid boss is, I guess.
Okay, I see what you mean.
Yeah. Like if it were a human type raid, yeah, sure. In my mind's eye, okay, you have a schematic. When you are learning to make something, you know all the components that you need in order to make it, right? Greatsword, you need the blade, you need crossguard, pummel, leather wrappings, blah, 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 blah. Whatever you're doing, great. That standard recipe never changes, except there is, like, in the crafting UI, you throw all your materials together. There's a special hire button that's specifically for specialized materials. So that's where you could, let's see what happens when I throw in this orb of might. And then you could see the changes. You don't need to fill that spot. Like if you have your squares of all, you drop your materials into craft. You don't need to fill it. But if you have something to throw in there, it may give a special bonus. That's how I would like to see it. Only for the fact then, we know what crafting means in World of Warcraft, Final Fantasy XIV. Nothing. It really doesn't. Except for at the beginning of an expansion. At the very beginning of an expansion, they sometimes throw a bone to crafters and go, hey, if you're fast enough, you can get materials together and get some gear that will boost people into what's considered a raid-ready area. Now, these are theme parks, mind you, but still, the concept's there. To get you ready for this. And then once you're there, it all got replaced with raid gear anyway. The problem with raid gear and dropping is it doesn't require the exchange of goods and services from a crafting community. And that's when you start seeing economies die. Because even if you cannot take a material itself, like you can't do a raid itself, maybe you join a guild that carries you, right? And then they outfit you with gear. People selling gear specifically from raids and whatnot. Okay, that's part of an economy, but the crafting side still tends to die. I'm a blacksmith in World of Warcraft. and it makes me zero money because at this point in the game, no one needs anything to craft. It just doesn't. There's better stuff that you can get more rapidly from dungeons and raids.
Yeah.
Distribution of Kickstarter and backer and upgrade backers. This was actually interesting. And this actually kind of goes into some of the alpha testing. Approximately 50% of all the Kickstarter and summer backers, and all the backers they have so far, came from North America. 35% from EU and 15% from Russia. Yeah.
Russia is higher.
What was that? Kind of cut out there for a second.
Russia is higher than I thought it would be for some reason. That was actually the only surprise to me there.
Yeah. And this is just what they had mentioned here, but as you can see, I think with Russia and Europe, it all depends how they do that. So what they're going to do is the reason why they asked this information is because they said about the time windows for Alpha 1 Phase 1 should be approximately 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time. Okay. So that's, what is that? 1 to 8 Eastern.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Or 8 p.m. to 2 a.m. GMT. So that, I guess, what they're trying to test from these early Alpha 1s, Phase 1s anyway, is trying to get this time frame where they can get as many NA players in as possible and as many EU players in as possible. I think the times actually kind of benefit EU a little bit more than NA at this point, but we'll see. Because I don't know about you, but pretty much anyone on the Pacific time is not going to be able to play at all during that, because if they work from 9 to 5, that's it. Eastern might get 3 hours in the tail end, but, So we'll see if they're just talking about once in a while or if they're going to start fluctuating that a little bit. I'm curious. Beta phases will be short, and they will only be there to fix bugs. As they said, there will be no open beta. Let's actually talk a little bit at this point. Oh, actually, let me hit up these last couple of points here because they all kind of fit in. There will be no trial period for new players. At this moment, however, they are considering setting up a separate server in which you can play up to level 10 or 15. If you like the game, you can transfer the character after subscribing, so there will be no bots or gold sellers in the normal game. And before release, you'll be able to actually create a character using a separate application, which I'm fond of. And after the game is released, there will be an app in which to interact with the market and guild features. So those are the last things from the Cologne meeting. Let's go back and talk about the no trial period. I know some people had mentioned, like, during the alpha testing and stuff, all of the alpha testers will be able to test the battlegrounds, the horde mode, all that stuff. We're about a month before it's released to any registered member to stress test the server. I think that's kind of going to be the only type of open beta you're going to get, which is good. But at the same idea is this is probably only going to be a stress test, so don't expect it to be up forever. It may only be, all right, guys, you have this for a day or two, maybe.
Yeah.
I know some people are like, well, you guys got to test it for a month. Well, yeah, they said it would be made available to, stress test the server to every registered account. They did not say that it would be ongoing. It will probably only be for a very small amount of time. And specifically only so that they can stress out the servers and see what happens. That's how I'm actually seeing this going to happen. What are your guys' thoughts?
Yeah, that's what I'm seeing as well too. I mean, the having no open beta itself and coupling that with it just tells me that they're planning on using these to be their server stresses. Their jam as many people in, see what's failing, and address those. And if you're doing it there, then I mean, there really is no point of an open beta given how they've laid things out. So I'm fine with it.
Yeah, I think the way they're playing it, it works. I probably would use a different word other than fix the bugs. They're probably going to do the open the beta to fix bugs they found in alpha, and then they're going to find any last minute showstoppers that they have to correct. But if anything else found in beta, they're probably not going to fix that until after go launch. It's going to
Gotcha.
depend, but it's really interesting approach to it.
All right. Okay. We're going to go ahead and end that discussion here. We're going to quickly touch on, I don't know, guys, do you think we have enough time to actually go over this entire PAX West panel, or should we kind of...
I think we should move a separate episode on this one.
Yeah, probably.
I got a lot of
50
stuff
some
I want to
minutes.
talk about that one.
Yep. All right. Well, we're not going to jam all that in here. So even though we said at the beginning of the show, we're probably going to have to come back and talk about this next week, which is kind of fine because the Alpha 1 stress tests are now starting, but those are all going to be probably under NDA. So we're probably not going to get a lot of news over the next few weeks while Intrepid is hammering out the Alpha 1 stuff. So we'll come back and we're going to discuss some of the PAX stuff next week, only because there is a lot of information from the PAX panel that I want to do justice, and we don't really have the time on this episode to do it because the Cologne, Germany GamesCom meeting did have a lot of information that we wanted to dissect before
A
jumping
lot of
into
good
it.
stuff came out of that one.
Yeah. Specifically the crafting. I'm really excited to know about the crafting because that was something, like I said, we didn't really know about. But now knowing that you're not really locked into one of the three, you have essentially a crafting knowledge base that you can then spec through. It will be very, very neat, and I can't wait to get my hands on that one.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff to cover in that, and the combat video, that second one that came out.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of stuff. If
Yeah.
you notice, they played it from a part of it. I think they played it from the monster perspective. If you're playing that,
Yes, they did.
the token, I'm going, oh, that looks awesome.
And we'll have to discuss all of that on a next episode. So stay tuned for next week when we dissect the new combat video as well as the PAX panel. All right, gentlemen, thank you so much for showing up. Let's let people know where they can find you. Let us start with Alpha Soul.
Yeah, I can be found on the official Dungeon Crawler Network Discord. I'm here under Alpha Soul. Mainly within, our general channel or wherever else you kind of see us. I'm also can be found on YouTube/DRACDOC, where I have a channel where I do fragrances and talk about some Ashes of Creation stuff.
Yeah, awesome. Storms.
Awesome. So you can find me at the Dungeon Crawler Network Discord. You can find me in ESO running around as well, especially now we're earning double Telvar in our PvP event. Hopefully you'll find me in Alpha 1 when we get in there. That'll be fun as well. And you can find me at Twitter. You can also find me at digitalpiperstudios.com as I continue to work on the next space adventure game.
Excellent. And before you find me, I do want to say we did get an awesome email as well from Maria. So shout out to Maria that we will be hitting in the future as well. So if you, of course, want to send us a message, you can head over to dungeoncrawlernetwork.com. There's a contact us page, and you can drop down that information, from the ashes and leave us a message, just like she did. She was asking us about role play in ashes. So I actually have that in the notes, guys. So at some point we are going to have an episode on that, but it's definitely going to be probably half an episode worth of discussion, I think, because there's a good bit of information on there as well. We might even pull in a guest role player who's even more of a role play fanatic than some of us. So anyway, you can follow me on Twitter at Aggelos, AGGELOS. Yeah, ELOS. Yeah, _DCN. I don't know why I can't even spell my own name right now. It's been a long week. Anyway, and of course, you can follow me on the our Discord, which you can find a link to on our official page, dungeoncrawlernetwork.com. I encourage you to join. We have a lot of people in there. It's fun to have discussions, and we enjoy having you guys there. If you want to join us in game, however, we do have a guild set up, Hands of Fate, which is our Ashes of Creation chapter of the Dungeon Crawler Network. Dungeon Crawler Network is our gaming community forged by the listeners of our gaming shows. We generally are a PvX guild based on the North American data center, but we do have players from all over the world. We actually have multiple officers to schedule events for each region's prime time within a slight variance, obviously, because Europe's big. Just going to say it right now. So, hey, sorry. No. So if you are an EU or Oceanic resident and have enjoyed playing with us in past games, or maybe even for the first time, we encourage you to check us out. Our website is, of course, handsoffateaoc.com. Our guild's focus is on progression rating because that's what we do, small-scale PvE, crafting and gathering, which now we even know more about, and node-based PvP, a.k.a. the open world, and, of course, community growth. Growing our awesome community is indeed what we are after. So there you go, guys. You can follow everything we do, dungeoncrawlernetwork.com. There you can find links to all of our social media, including Twitch, YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook. Be sure to check out our Patreon at patreon.com/dungeoncrawlernetwork. If you want to help support the show, you can do so by also leaving us a 5-star review on iTunes so people know that we are a real podcast, that we say real words, and sometimes they matter. Thank you for joining us on this episode of From the Ashes, and we will see you next time. See you later, everybody.